hurricane. The sun hung heavy and golden over Santa Monica, casting long, languid shadows across the wooden planks of the pier. It was the kind of afternoon where the air smelled of salt spray and cheap suntan oil, a quintessential Southern California day that usually invited relaxation. However, inside the manager's apartment of the Mediterranean-style building on San Vicente Boulevard, the atmosphere was anything but relaxed. Stanley Roper was pacing. His footsteps, heavy and rhythmic, echoed against the linoleum floor. He was a man of specific habits and even more specific anxieties. Today, those anxieties were centered on a young woman currently snoring softly in the guest room. His niece, Karen. "Be quiet, Helen," Stanley hissed, though his wife, Helen, was doing nothing more than filing her nails. "You're gonna wake her up. She's exhausted." Helen Roper didn't look up. Her hair was perfectly coiffed, her colorful caftan a vibrant splash against the muted tones of their living room. "Filing my nails is going to wake up your niece. Stanley, it's not the filing that wakes the dead in this house. It's the sound of you complaining. She's got jet lag," Stanley retorted, stopping his pacing to gesture wildly toward the hallway. "She flew in all the way from New York. Do you have any idea what that does to a person's internal clock? I married jet lag. I know what it looks like." Ellen finally looked up, her eyes narrowing with a familiar, weary wit. "You're not protecting her from exhaustion, Stanley. You're holding her captive. You've been her jailer since the moment she stepped off that plane. Why don't you let the poor girl breathe?" "I promised my brother I'd look after her," Stanley said, his voice dropping into a defensive rumble. "And looking after her means keeping her away from the freaks, the weirdos, and the perverts that crawl all over this city. I wasn't talking about your friends, Stanley," Helen quipped, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Stanley ignored the jab. He had a plan. He needed someone safe, someone completely, utterly, and undeniably non-threatening to take Karen out for a night on the town. He needed a man who wouldn't be a man. So to speak, his mind immediately drifted upstairs to apartment 201, to Jack Tripper, the birthday dilemma. Upstairs, the mood was vastly different. The apartment shared by Jonna Wood, Chrissy Snow, and Jack Tripper was a whirlwind of activity. Jonna, the sensible florist with a heart of gold and a mind for logistics, was currently staring at a cake box with a look of utter confusion. "Jack, what is this?" Jonna asked, pointing to the colorful frosting. Jack Tripper, an aspiring chef with a penchant for physical comedy and a smile that could disarm a debt collector, leaned over her shoulder. "It's a birthday cake, Jonna, for you. It says happy birthday, Jimmy," Jean noted dryly. "Exactly," Jack beamed. "Jimmy didn't show up to the bakery to pick it up, so I got it for half price. All I have to do is scrape off the my and add an et. It's the informal touch, Jonna. Very chic for the 70s. Chrissy Snow, the blonde, bubbly secretary, whose innocence was often mistaken for dimness, walked into the kitchen, her eyes wide. A Jimmy cake. Oh, Jack, that's so thoughtful. Does that mean we're having a Jimmy party? Jana sighed, but she couldn't hide her smile. This was their life, a constant balancing act of being broke, being happy, and being just a little bit ridiculous. I wish I could have gotten you something better, Jana, Chrissy said, leaning against the counter. I bought a scarf that goes perfectly with all my outfits, but I figured I'd let you borrow it sometimes. That's very practical of you, Chrissy, Jana replied. The conversation was interrupted by a sharp, insistent knocking at the door. It was a knock they all recognized, the rhythmic thud of authority, otherwise known as Stanley Roper. The proposition. Jack opened the door to find Stanley standing there, looking uncharacteristically nervous. Tripper, can I talk to you? Privately, Stanley asked, glancing at the girls as if they were co-conspirators in a plot he couldn't quite fathom. Jack stepped out onto the landing. What's up, Mr. Roper? If it's about the faucet, I swear it was like that when we moved in. It's not the faucet. It's my niece, Karen, Stanley said, lowering his voice. She's visiting from New York. Helen's been nagging me to get her out of the house. I want you to take her out tonight. Jack blinked. Tonight? But it's Jeanette's birthday. We have plans. Cake, dinner, the whole Jimmy experience. Stanley looked pained. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled bill. $50, Tripper. And you can use my car. Just take her somewhere. Safe. Somewhere you and your kind go. Jack looked at the $50. In 1977, $50 was a king's ransom for a culinary student. It was rent. It was groceries. It was a new set of knives. But he also felt a pang of guilt. Jeanette's birthday was important. I don't know, Mr. Roper. I'll make it 75. Stanley pressured. Before Jack could answer, the bedroom door downstairs creaked open and Karen stepped out. Jack's jaw nearly hit the floor. He had expected a female version of Stanley, perhaps someone with a sweater vest and a permanent scowl. Instead, Karen was stunning. She had dark, cascading hair, a radiant smile, and a New York sophistication that felt entirely out of place in the Ropers' hallway. Jack, Stanley prompted. Jack didn't even look at the money. I'll do it, for the sake of neighborly relations, of course. Chapter 2. A Night to Remember and Forget. The evening began with a lie and ended with a radiator explosion. Jack had promised Jana and Chrissy he would be back in time for the real dinner, but Karen was a force of nature. She wanted to see the sunset at the Palisades. She wanted to see the neon lights of the Strip. She wanted to talk. Back at the apartment, Jana and Chrissy sat over a cold dinner. The Jimmy cake sat in the center of the table, the mite half scraped off, looking like a victim of a surgical error. He's not coming back, is he? Chrissy asked, her voice small. He's with a beautiful girl, Chrissy. Jack's head is built on a swivel. If it's female and it moves, he's interested. Shauna said, her disappointment masking a deeper, unacknowledged jealousy. Are we jealous? Chrissy asked. Shauna paused. No, we're mad. There's a difference. The radiator and the revelation. On the